Welcome to Empathy Stories, where every tale reminds us of the profound power of connection, kindness, and resilience. Tonight, we delve into the life of Ethan Hayes, a millionaire whose world of wealth and isolation is forever changed by a chance encounter with a struggling mother and her two children. Let's begin. The city of New York glittered like 1,000 tiny stars trapped within its towering skyline. From atop the shimmering Hayes Tower, Ethan Hayes gazed down at the sprawling city below, a man of immense wealth and success. Ethan was known for his sharp business acumen and cold demeanor, a persona that had earned him the nickname the Ice King. Dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, he exuded the confidence and detachment of someone who had mastered the art of controlling his world. Yet, as he stared out of the floor-to-ceiling windows of his private office, Ethan felt a familiar void gnawing at his chest. It was the kind of emptiness that no amount of money could fill. Despite his empire of luxury and influence, Ethan had grown increasingly disillusioned with the life he'd built. His success, while dazzling on the outside, masked years of loneliness and unspoken regret. Raised by parents who prioritized appearances and social connections over, Ethan had learned to rely on no one but himself. Now, at 42, his world was meticulously organized, yet devoid of the warmth that made life truly meaningful. A sharp buzz from his phone broke the silence. His assistant reminded him of the charity gala he was expected to attend that evening, a glittering event hosted by the city's elite. Ethan sighed. He saw these gatherings as hollow performances, thinly veiled attempts by the wealthy to flaunt their status while pretending to care about societal issues. Still, appearances had to be maintained. He left his office and descended the elevator to the waiting limousine below, his expression unreadable as he settled into the plush leather seat. On the other side of the city, far removed from Ethan's world of glass and steel, a young woman named Lauren sat huddled in the shadow of a crumbling building. The alley where she and her children sought refuge reeked of damp concrete and desperation. Lauren held her infant daughter, Emma, close to her chest while her son, Jacob, barely 5 years old, clung to her tattered coat. It had been days since their last proper meal, and the cold night air seeped through her thin clothes. Biting at her skin, Lauren once had dreams. As a bright student with a passion for medicine, she had envisioned a future where she would help others, make a difference in the world. But life had a way of crushing even the most hopeful spirits. A series of tragedies, a pregnancy that forced her to leave school, an abusive partner, and a system that seemed designed to let her fall through the cracks had brought her to this moment. Now homeless and destitute, Lauren's dreams felt like distant memories, relics of a life she could no longer reach. Desperation drove her to an audacious decision. She had heard about the gala, an event filled with powerful and influential people. Surely, someone there could help her, just for one night, enough to keep her children safe from the cold. Wrapping her children as warmly as she could, Lauren set off toward the hotel, clutching the sliver of hope that remained in her heart. The gala was a glittering affair, the kind of event where champagne flowed freely, and every conversation seemed laced with ulterior motives. Ethan arrived fashionably late, weaving through the crowd of tuxedos and designer gowns with practiced ease. He exchanged pleasantries, nodded at familiar faces, but his mind wandered as it always did during these events. The laughter and chatter felt hollow, the entire spectacle a charade he could barely tolerate. Excusing himself, Ethan stepped onto the balcony for some fresh air. The cool breeze was a welcome reprieve from the stifling atmosphere inside. As he gazed down at the city streets below, something caught his attention, a commotion near the entrance. Squinting, he saw a disheveled woman holding a small bundle in her arms, a child gripping her leg as she pleaded with the doorman. Ethan didn't know what compelled him, but he found himself heading back inside and down to the lobby. The woman's voice grew clearer as he approached. "Please, I just need help," Lauren cried, her voice cracking with desperation. "It's so cold outside, and my babies haven't eaten. I don't know where else to go." The doorman looked uncomfortable but unmoved. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but this is a private event," one of them said firmly. "What's going on here?" Ethan's voice cut through the tension like a blade. His commanding tone made the doorman step aside, and Lauren turned to face him, her tear-streaked face etched with fear and hope. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't have anywhere else to go. My children, they're hungry." Ethan studied her, his sharp eyes taking in the dark circles under her eyes, the way her hands shook as she cradled her baby. For a moment, he was struck by the sheer rawness of her pain. It was a stark contrast to the polished superficiality he had just left behind. Before he fully understood his own actions, Ethan spoke. "Come with me." Lauren hesitated, stunned by his offer, but the urgency in his voice spurred her into motion. He led her and the children to his waiting limousine, ignoring the curious glances and whispers from the other guests. As they settled into the car, Lauren looked around in disbelief at the plush interior, her grip on her children tightening as if she feared the moment might shatter. Ethan instructed his driver to take them to his penthouse. During the ride, the silence was heavy, punctuated only by Emma's soft whimpers and Jacob's wide-eyed wonder. Lauren kept stealing glances at Ethan, unsure of who this man was or why he had chosen to help her. Her instincts screamed at her to be cautious, but the warmth of the car and the promise of shelter muted her fears. When they arrived, the elevator whisked them up to Ethan's penthouse, a sprawling space of sleek, minimalist design with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered breathtaking views of the city. Lauren gasped, overwhelmed by the sheer luxury of the place. Ethan gestured for them to sit, then disappeared into the kitchen, returning moments later with water, fruit, and sandwiches hastily assembled from his refrigerator. Lauren accepted the food with trembling hands, whispering a tearful thank you as she handed pieces to her children. Watching them eat, Ethan felt an unfamiliar warmth stirring within him. It wasn't pity or charity, but something deeper, a sense of connection, perhaps even responsibility. "Who are you?" Lauren asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ethan Hayes," he replied, his tone matter-of-fact. "And you?" "Lauren," she said, pausing to look down at her children. "This is Jacob, and this is Emma." Ethan nodded, sensing there was much more to her story than she was ready to share. "You're safe here," he said. "Stay as long as you need to figure things out." Tears welled up in Lauren's eyes, but she blinked them away. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice cracking. "You don't have to," Ethan said, surprising himself with the sincerity in his voice. As the night deepened, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this chance encounter had shifted something within him. For the first time in years, the void inside him felt a little less consuming. And as Lauren finally allowed herself to rest, her children curled up beside her, Ethan wondered if this unexpected moment of humanity might be the beginning of something far greater than he could have ever anticipated. The sun rose over the city, casting its golden light through the towering windows of Ethan Hayes' penthouse. The quiet hum of the urban morning felt strangely soothing. For Ethan, it marked the start of a day that would redefine everything he thought he knew about himself. Lauren stirred awake on the plush sofa, the first proper rest she'd had in months. For a moment, the unfamiliar surroundings startled her. But as she glanced at her children, Jacob curled up on a nearby armchair. Emma nestled in her arms. Relief washed over her. They were safe, at least for now. Ethan entered the living room, dressed in a crisp shirt and slacks, holding a cup of coffee. He hesitated as he saw Lauren's guarded gaze, unsure how to approach this unexpected connection. Breaking the silence, he said, "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" Lauren nodded, sitting up slowly. "Yes, thank you for everything," she replied, her voice tinged with gratitude and lingering uncertainty. "Are the kids hungry?" Ethan asked, gesturing toward the kitchen. "I can have something prepared. They've had more than enough already." Lauren said quickly, "You've donné so much. I don't want to impose." Ethan's sharp business instincts told him to respond with the efficiency he was known for, to deflect and keep things transactional. But for reasons he couldn't quite explain, he found himself saying, "You're not imposing." Lauren gave him a searching look, as if trying to discern his motives. "Why did you help us?" she asked quietly. "You don't even know me." Ethan paused. The question unsettled him, not because he didn't have an answer, but because he wasn't sure he understood it himself. Finally, he said, "I don't know. I saw you, and it just felt like the right thing to do." Lauren studied him for a moment, then nodded. "It's rare for someone like you to even notice someone like me." Her words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Ethan felt a twinge of guilt. She wasn't wrong. How often had he turned a blind eye to the struggles of others, cocooned in the privilege of his wealth? Yet here she was, disrupting his world in ways he hadn't anticipated. "Why don't you tell me your story?" Ethan said, taking a seat across from her. "Start from the beginning." Lauren hesitated, but something in Ethan's steady gaze urged her to speak. She took a deep breath and began. "I wasn't always like this," she said, her voice steady but tinged with sorrow. "I had plans, dreams. I wanted to become a doctor." She recounted her life, from her promising days as a student to the series of tragedies that unraveled everything. She spoke of the abusive relationship that trapped her, the struggle to escape, and the challenges of raising 2 children alone. She shared how she took Jacob in after his mother, her best friend, died, refusing to let him be lost to the foster system. Ethan listened intently, his usually impassive face softening as her story unfolded. The vulnerability in her voice struck a chord deep within him. For the first time, he saw not just a homeless woman, but a person who had endured unimaginable hardship with remarkable resilience. "What about your parents?" Ethan asked gently. Lauren shook her head. "I grew up in foster care. You never knew them. The only thing I have is this." She reached in her bag and pulled out a crumpled photograph. The image was faded but clear enough to make out 2 young women standing side by side. In the background, a man stood apart, his face partially obscured but unmistakable to Ethan. His breath caught in his throat as he recognized the man. It was his father. Ethan's mind raced. How was this possible? The timing, the resemblance, it couldn't be a coincidence. He stared at the photograph, his usually composed demeanor cracking under the weight of realization. "Where was this taken?" he asked, his voice strained. "At the children's home where I grew up," Lauren replied, her brow furrowing in confusion at his reaction. "One of the caregivers said the man in the background knew my parents. She claimed my father was wealthy, but had to give me up." Ethan's stomach churned. He had spent his entire life idolizing his father as a man of integrity and discipline, the cornerstone of the Hayes family legacy. Yet, if Lauren's story was true, it meant his father had not only abandoned a child, but had done so in secret, leaving a trail of lies and unanswered questions. He rose abruptly, the weight of the revelation almost too much to bear. "I need to make a call," he said, his voice terse. Lauren watched him leave, her heart sinking. Had she said too much? The glimmer of hope that had carried her through the night began to dim, replaced by the familiar dread of rejection. Ethan retreated to his study, dialing the number of the family's trusted lawyer. As the call connected, his voice was sharper than usual. "I need access to my father's private records, adoption papers, donations, anything he might have kept hidden, and I need it quietly." The lawyer hesitated. "Ethan, that's a significant request. What's going on?" "Just do it," Ethan snapped, his usual composure fraying. "And don't tell anyone." After ending the call, he sat in silence, the weight of the truth pressing down on him. Could Lauren really be his half-sister? If so, how had his father justified abandoning her while raising him with every advantage money could buy? The questions swirled in his mind, colliding with a growing sense of guilt and responsibility. By the time Ethan returned to the living room, the air between him and Lauren had shifted. She was sitting stiffly, her hands clasped tightly together. Jacob and Emma played quietly nearby, oblivious to the tension. "I need to ask you something," Ethan said, his voice calmer now. "If there's a chance that we're related, would you want to know?" Lauren's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we might share a father." Ethan said, his tone measured but filled with unspoken emotion. I don't know for sure, but I want to find out. Lawrence mindred. The idea was too fantastical to comprehend. Why would you care? She asked, her voice tinged with both disbelief and vulnerability. Even if it's true, what difference would it make? Ethan hesitated, searching for the right words. Because it would mean I've failed to see what really matters. And because you deserve to know the truth. Lauren stared at him, her guarded walls cracking under the weight of his sincerity. She nodded slowly. Okay, she said softly. Let's find out. As they sat together, an uneasy truce forming between them. Neither could fully grasp the journey they were about to embark on. For Ethan, it was a confrontation with the past he had long ignored. For Lauren, it was a sliver of hope that her life, and the lives of her children, might finally turn a corner. And for both of them, it was the beginning of a connection that would redefine the meaning of family. Days passed, each one drawing Lauren and Ethan closer to uncovering the truth. The DNA test results loomed over their shared space like a storm cloud. Ethan, typically composed and methodical, found himself uncharacteristically restless. His mornings, once devoted to precise routines and market strategies, now began with quiet moments of reflection as he sipped his coffee, gazing out at the skyline. Lauren, too, grappled with a maelstrom of emotions. She had spent her entire life yearning for a connection, some piece of her identity to hold on to. The possibility of Ethan being her brother was both exhilarating and terrifying. What if it was true? What if it wasn't? Would it change anything? Or would it simply reopen wounds she'd spent years trying to heal? On a crisp morning, the results arrived. Ethan's lawyer called to confirm the undeniable truth. Ethan and Lauren shared the same father. They were siblings. Ethan sat in his study, staring at the envelope that contained the detailed report. He had already heard the confirmation, but hadn't opened the physical document. Lauren waited in the living room, her heart pounding as she clutched Emma to her chest. Jacob played quietly nearby, unaware of the life-changing revelation about to unfold. Finally, Ethan emerged, the envelope in hand. His normally stoic expression was softened by a mix of determination and vulnerability. He handed the envelope to Lauren, his voice steady. It's true. You're my sister. Lauren stared at the envelope, her hands trembling. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't dare let them fall. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, Ethan replied, sitting down beside her. But I need you to know something. This changes everything for me. For us. Lauren blinked at him, her breath catching. What do you mean? Ethan leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. I spent my whole life chasing success, building walls to keep people out. I thought I was protecting myself, but I was just running from the things that really matter. And now here you are. You, Jacob, and Emma. You're not just family by blood. You're a chance for me to do something right. To be the kind of person I should have been all along. Lauren's tears spilled over. She had spent so long feeling invisible, discarded by the world. Hearing Ethan's words crack through the armor she had built around her heart. I don't want to be a burden, she said, her voice trembling. You're not, Ethan said firmly. You never were, and you never will be. For the first time in years, Lauren allowed herself to believe it. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan took swift action to support his newfound family. He arranged for Lauren and the children to move into an apartment in a safe neighborhood, ensuring they had everything they needed. He also insisted on helping Lauren return to school, reigniting her dream of becoming a doctor. You're serious about this? Lauren asked one evening as they sat together in the penthouse. The children were asleep, and the city lights twinkled like stars outside. Of course, I am, Ethan replied. You've sacrificed enough. It's time for you to have something for yourself. Lauren hesitated, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee mug. It feels too good to be true. Ethan met her gaze, his voice steady. It's not, and you deserve it. Lauren's heart swelled with gratitude, but doubt still lingered. What if I fail? What if I can't keep up? Ethan smiled. the corners of his mouth softening in a way she hadn't seen before. "You've already survived more than most people could handle. I think you're capable of anything." Their bond deepened with each passing day. Ethan, once consumed by the pursuit of wealth, found himself drawn to the simple joys of family life. He learned how to soothe Emma's cries and listen to Jacob's endless questions about the world. In return, Lauren saw a side of Ethan that few ever did, a man with a heart far larger than he allowed himself to show. But their newfound happiness wasn't without challenges. Ethan's decision to embrace Lauren and the children drew scrutiny from his peers and the media. Questions arose about the legitimacy of Lauren's connection to the Hayes family and the implications for the family's reputation. One evening, Ethan's lawyer warned him of potential fallout. "Ethan, this could harm your standing in the business world," he said. "Your board might question your judgment." Ethan's response was resolute. "Let them. I'm done living for other people's expectations." He stood by his words, holding a press conference to address the truth about his family. With Lauren by his side, he spoke openly about their father's hidden past and pledged to use the Hayes Foundation to make meaningful changes. "This isn't about damage control," he told the crowd. "It's about making things right." The response was polarizing. Some criticized Ethan for airing private matters publicly, but many applauded his honesty and commitment to change. For Lauren, it was a turning point, a moment when she saw her brother not as the cold, detached businessman he once was, but as a man willing to stand up for what was right. Their lives began to settle into a new rhythm. Lauren started her pre-med classes, a mix of excitement and nerves coursing through her as she walked onto campus for the first time in years. Ethan balanced his corporate responsibilities with a newfound dedication to his family, often leaving the office early to spend time with the children. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Lauren turned to Ethan. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Regret what?" "Letting us into your life. It's a lot." Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. "Regret it? Not for a second. If anything, I regret not finding you sooner." Lauren smiled, her eyes misty. "I'm glad you did." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Ethan and Lauren sat in comfortable silence. The journey that had brought them together was far from easy, but it had given them something neither had ever expected: a sense of belonging. A family forged through resilience and love. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time, they faced it not as strangers, but as siblings, united by a bond that would carry them through whatever came next. Thank you for joining us on Empathy Stories as we explored the transformative journey of Ethan Hayes and Lauren. Two lives forever changed by the unexpected bond of family. We hope this story touched your heart and reminded you of the incredible impact kindness and connection can have. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring tales. Together, let's keep spreading empathy, one story at a time. See you in the next video.